Hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. Today we're taking a look at EOS, which is EOS, fantastic coin, and I've covered it recently, I think it was last week, but again here today because my community reached out to me to ask to cover it again based on the recent price increase. So if you're watching this video, obviously you're aware of that. Hopefully you find benefit from this because I like to help educate you on best practice and just help you try to find a good entry point if possible. Just know this is for educational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor. Please always do your own research. If you'd like to reach out to my Telegram community, link is in the description below, as well as my Patreon account, show your support, in addition to $25 in Bitcoin from Voyager, all in the description below. So without further ado, let's go and get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at EOS. Now, before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, kind of get a baseline on the overall market sentiment to see what's going on, just so we understand, big picture, because Bitcoin is a very strong catalyst for price movement in the market, right, for all of the altcoins. So we're just going to take a quick look at that first and then move on to EOS. All right. So Bitcoin, first things first. This is what Bitcoin looks like right now. And this is essentially, let's take a look at the 4-hour chart. This is the best chart to use because we have the 150 and 200-day moving averages all essentially working as either support and resistance lines, and the 4-hour chart gives us the best, most strongest, I guess you could say that they work the strongest on this chart. So that's why I always like to use it. So let's just go ahead and take a quick look here. So first things first, zooming in just a little bit, we can see that it has a slight variance, but the 100-day moving average is essentially working as a support level right now. So once it breaks above, and it goes up to 57,000 and stays above that, we'll be in very, very good shape. The reason why I say that is because 57,000 has been the strong support and resistance line for the past week and a half. So if you see here, it blew past and it stayed above, dropped below, above, below. It's kind of played this little dance with 57,000 for a long time, which is why we see our altcoins going up and then down, and just a constant state of indecision. So once Bitcoin regains its footing and stays over 57,000, we'll be in really, really good shape to essentially be able to have a lot more growth in our altcoins. Okay. Now that'll correlate even stronger with EOS based on today's recent price increase, because if Bitcoin will just say continue to progress upwards, then EOS will likely do so as well. All right. That being said, this is kind of what we're looking at. Again, this is a 4-hour chart. This is the 50 and 200-day moving average right here, hovering right around 57,000. They're currently working as resistance lines, but I'm speculating that the price, just like from before, if you see here, this big green bar here, big green bar there, and 2 solid green bars there, the price will likely shoot past the 57,000 range once it does. It probably will not hesitate any. It'll just shoot right up above. And then we'll likely see everything else above and beyond that too, okay? Again, so something to be aware of. That is the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin. Let's look at the 4-hour chart for Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is nice to note because if you see here with the price action, we can see that it's kind of reflectant of Bitcoin. In other words, anytime Bitcoin sells off, it will too. But what's super cool is the fact that regardless of if Bitcoin recovers or not, Ethereum does as well. So in most cases, if you're going to try to buy any kind of dip, Ethereum dip probably the best one to buy, because it's almost guaranteed it'll recover and continue upwards, because it almost works contradictory to Bitcoin based on the simple fact that when people sell off Bitcoin, in other words, when there's a major sell-off on Bitcoin, the first major altcoin that people flock over to is Ethereum. So that's what's happening here. That's what you're seeing here. That being said, that's kind of what we're looking at. So, again, big picture, 4-hour charts, none of the moving averages are making an impact right now, but the 50-day moving average may intersect soon, so we'll likely see if that will work as a support line in the near future. I would speculate in the next week, depending on the price action, we'll see this happen. So that's Ethereum. All right, so let's take a look at EOS. And this is just the 15-minute chart. We're actually going to look at the 1-day chart first, because the fact that I always like to identify 1 day, what goes on for the big picture with the 1-day chart, and then work my way down. So we'll go 1 day, 4-hour, 15, and possibly the 1-minute chart to see what the price action looks like, so we can try to find a good entry point, or just understand generally what's going on. A lot of times when the price action is severe as it is right now, it's important to avoid the hype train and to be mindful of the fact that when the price retraces itself, perhaps that might be a better entry point. Okay, because what goes up must come down, Newton's law or something, right? So that kind of applies to this as well. It may not come down as severe, but if you look in the history here, just to quickly note, anytime EOS has come up, it's had a pretty strong retracement. So up, strong retrace, up, strong retrace. So even though history doesn't have to reoccur in cryptocurrency, it typically always does. I would say more often than not, if there's a percent to add here, 60, 70% of the time, there's a trend that occurs in the past, the trend will continue to happen in the future, which is both good and bad here, because then we can see that there's likelihood of a retracement coming up here soon. See if we can get a little closer. But there's also, the inverse there too, where that, it could continue upwards as well. So there's definitely silver linings here. That being said, this is what kind of EOS is looking like. Let's just quickly look at the RSI. RSI is overextended or trending towards it. And if you note from any time in the past, and this usually is pretty consistent with RSI, anytime the RSI peaks up over 70, there's always a retracement that occurs. Here it came up way over 70. First major increase from like $3 to $5.50. That occurred, and there was a slight retracement, but then of course it lost complete momentum, came all the way back down to like 360. Okay, period of consolidation, increase, hit its new recent all-time high. That's the last time I covered it, right around $8.76. This is a previous resistance line, and as you can see, big surprise, look at that. Shot right up to the resistance, tested it for a day, and then blew past it and kept going. It's really common for major resistance lines that are previous all-time highs to be broken with a vengeance. They get destroyed, if you will, just kind of blast right through. So sometimes it's good to have an all-time high, that in this case that was tested 2 days in a row, because it just tested the third time and just took right off after that. So something to be mindful of. Just also note too, and we'll move this out a little further, this is now a major support level, and it has been tested 2 times in the last 2 days. So good news is you can see the price retrace down after Bitcoin sold off yesterday, hit this little, it blew down below of course, but it closed above. Same thing here as well, it touched and closed above, and we're looking at a really, really good, good scenario right now for EOS. So all the technicals look really nice right now. I like what I'm seeing here so far. The MACD appears to have tons of momentum, so it's ramped back up again. That doesn't have a lot of validity on the one-day chart, but it does tell us that we are essentially in bull town, if that makes sense. It's a bullish sentiment, and bulls are essentially in control. Just bear in mind, there could be a retracement that might occur in the near future based on its history, right? So just to quickly note, shot up once, shot up twice. So it ramped up 2 days in a row. So these were 2 bull days, right? 2 full bullish days. And by the way, that percent may not look like a lot, but that was a 107% increase in 48 hours. It's quite a lot when you think about it, because you literally doubled your income or your money if you had bought in at the right time, right? So that is essentially what that looks like there. And then of course, we have a 1, 2, 3, 4 day retracement. And this is most likely because of Bitcoin, right? Because Bitcoin sold off pretty heavy in the last few days. So I'm not surprised by that. That first retracement was kind of on its own because it had to. Second retracement right here yesterday was because Bitcoin sold off, and now it's back on track. So it's kind of nice that this occurred, because then it allowed for there to be kind of a cooling down period, because when you see the price increase so fast, so quickly, the retracement ends up being super, super significant, where this one was only, I guess, moderate considering. I hope that makes sense, but generally speaking, that's the overall sentiment there right now from the one-day chart. Looking at the 4-hour chart for EOS, that's where it gets interesting. This is quite cool. Okay, I like this. First of all, to note, RSI is peaking up over 70. So to me personally, it's usually an indication of a sell signal. But again, it's not always, because there was a recent all-time high that was broken, and now the price is above that. So we're kind of in this unknown territory where we don't fully know or understand what's going to happen next. It can be very difficult to gauge. Sometimes looking at the overall bullish sentiment tells us that it might continue to go upwards. I'm hoping so and believe so, because, well, we'll have to look at a smaller time frame to identify, but this previous all-time high, most recent all-time high, what that was on the 6th. That was at 1327. Okay, so we got to remember 1327 is kind of the new potential support line. Okay, And also just to note, this previous support line that we looked at $8 and roughly 80 cents, it was tested two and a half, I guess you could say, 2.5 times on the 4-hour chart there. So all in all, that's still a good support line. If we do end up losing this potential support here and the price comes back down and works itself into a channel, I think it's unlikely or less likely the price will come back down unless Bitcoin decides to sell off again. Which is why I always like to preface my videos with a Bitcoin summary, because the fact that Bitcoin really just drives the price in every direction. Now this is obviously recovering a lot stronger than Bitcoin was, but you can tell that Bitcoin had an impact here when it sold off yesterday. Okay. Again, just something to note, MACD does appear to have a shift in upward momentum, usually when the lower line intersects with the upper line. In other words, the green swings up through the actual white line. That really tells us that there is significant bullish momentum, and usually that's a buy signal there for most people. Okay. All right, let's look at the 15-minute chart. Nice. I do like this. This looks good. Okay, so I like this. Obviously, there's some things I don't like, but let me explain what I mean by that. So first of all, to note, to me, the MACD doesn't matter too much on the 15-minute chart. It helps us understand roughly what the actual momentum is. Obviously, we can see it's still bullish momentum. That's about it. So besides that, don't worry about the MACD. It just kind of gives you a quick perspective on the overall sentiment. It's still bullish even on the 15-minute chart. The RSI is well over 70. Now, I don't typically like an RSI over 70. It's usually an indication of a sell signal for me, or at least a trim off the top if you have the option. But since the price is above the previous all-time high, this does spark interest in the sense that this is working as a new support level. So this previous resistance is a new support. Anytime a previous all-time high is broken, it can commonly work as a much stronger support. And we saw that with the previous all-time high that I marked before, like $8.80. So it may not break out right away. We might have a short period of consolidation, but I'm venturing to guess that this support line will hold for some time, and it will likely continue upwards from there, just based on the overall sentiment here, because again, I'm not projecting or predicting this to increase. I'm just telling you that all the charts are telling us that we're seriously still in bullish territory. Even though we've had a slight retracement recently, it's still looking very good. Okay. So that's just kind of what I see here so far. Obviously, there's a lot to be determined. I'm usually very cautious when taking entry after the price increases, how fast it did. I mean, what is this percent here? This is approximately, it moved upwards of right around 57% in 1, 2, 3, I would say 3 hours, right around 3 hours. So that's a pretty strong movement, right? Especially considering the fact that the price is already pretty high when it was only $3, 3 or 4 weeks ago. Okay, so be careful with your entry point, of course, but I do feel comfortable in the sense that this will either work as a major support or resistance level. Since the price is now above the previous all-time high, typically that works as a stronger support. So that being said, we might see this as a continued support moving forward. But I do have to preface or just essentially acknowledge the fact that the RSI is over 70, and it has been for some time now. Anytime that happens, there is a state of exhaustion that happens, and the bulls could literally lose control and the bears could take over. Okay, so just keep that in mind. As you can see right now, it is testing that support level. So if it breaks and stays below, be very mindful. Do not take entry. Ensure you wait for confirmation. And to me, if you're new to the channel, confirmation for me is essentially just making sure that you wait no less than 30 minutes for the 2 solid green bars to close above a support or resistance level. In other words, this being the support level, what I would do is I would wait to take entry until I see 2 solid green bars. And let me kind of further this example here. When I say 2 solid green bars, I'm referring to this. So you see these 2 green bars here? That is 2 solid green bars. And the reason why that's relevant and important to acknowledge is because that gives us confirmation. So first of all, the volume weighted average price is trending right with the price here. So that's also another further confirmation that's really nice. Furthermore, there is a support line here. So we've got basically two major support lines, whereas the actual price in that 15-minute time frame closed above that support level. In other words, both these support levels, it closed above that. So to me, this would be good confirmation to consider a long point. However, you also need to bear in mind too that the price increased rapidly and the price is over 70 RSI. Normally, I would never say to take entry over 70 on the RSI. The only reason why I might possibly consider it, and I still don't feel comfortable with it yet, is to wait for the support level to be tested. So if we see two of these green bars here, these two green bars closing above this support level here, staying above VWAP, then we'd be in pretty good shape to consider entry, because that would imply that the bulls are ready to go for another run. However, if we keep seeing these red, green, red, green, red, green bars, kind of like we see back here, if we keep seeing that, I wouldn't recommend taking entry. Okay, so just use this as an example. Say this back here, right? And it's easy to say, of course, because it's all done and over with, and there's no guarantees. But when you're in the market at the time, if you look at this here, you see this VWAP line, right? This blue line. Here, let me make that bigger. This VWAP line here, that is closing. It's a 15-minute green bar, right? It's closing above the VWAP line, which is these blue lines here. So that blue line right there, it closed above. So that's one confirmation. That would be, to me, I'd be like, okay, great. 15 minutes, it closed. I want one more 15-minute green bar to close above that support level of the VWAP in order for me to take entry. Okay. Coincidentally, there's a massive large green bar right here. So these powers combined, if you combine those two, that gives you a perfect entry point. So to me, when I see something like that, that's when I take entry. Because that's the confirmation I need to have. Because that gives me long enough confirmation, 30 minutes or more, to know that the bulls are in control. So I know you're probably thinking to yourself, well, had you got in earlier, you would have taken more profits, right? That's darn true. There's no doubt about that. And there's also no doubt that my profit that I take each day isn't substantially as much as most other people. I'm fine by that though, because I'm growing my wallet 1% at a time per day, right? So my total portfolio is growing by 1% to 2% per day. Now that might only be like a 3 to 6% gain on the day for this specific coin, but at the end of the day, I'm still growing my wallet and I'm not losing a bunch because I'm being very careful, articulate, and making sure that I take the right entry. Okay, so why risk, just jumping in willy-nilly here when you don't have confirmation? The price was under VWAP the entire time. The reason why it broke out is because it came above the support level and held and continued upwards. Okay. Now, obviously, you can use the 1-minute chart and use a smaller time frame for confirmation. Let's see if this translates in here. So looking at this here, for example, you could use the 1-minute chart as well, right? There's the VWAP line. We've got 1, 2, 3 solid green bars. So perhaps a good entry point, maybe a little bit earlier than you see this 15-minute green bars that I like to use, would be right here. So if you find 3 solid green bars, close these other guys out, because normally right here would have been my entry point, right? That's where I'd normally take my entry on my 15-minute chart. But if you use a 1-minute chart and you find, just say, 3 solid green bars that close above the VWAP line, then that's also a good consideration for entry. Okay. And again, all the while, RSI is right at 70. So again, you want to be careful, you want to be cautious, but generally speaking, you have this kind of momentum above the support line, you're looking to be in pretty good shape to find some kind of profit. Just don't be afraid to sell out and to essentially sell your position before it gets too far, because just this comes up and just say it were to retrace back down, you'd lose all your profits. It's better to be profitable in the day than to have a potential 10% gain or 20% loss. Like, we want to be done with that, right? We want to stop doing that. I've lost plenty of money in my day. That's why I make these videos, to help hopefully educate you on best practice, because these are the things that keep you successful over your tenure. If you want to do this for a long time and you don't want to burn out, you need to keep consistent. You need to have a game plan in place. And my game plan is to have a specific target in mind every day. I need to grow my portfolio by 1% per day. It may not seem like a lot, but if you're familiar with exponential growth, it's actually quite significant over the course of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5x years, right? Especially in the crypto market. So, I just like to live to trade another day. That's me personally, and I hope the same for you, of course. But just take this into consideration. What I'm saying here is just, you want to be cautious, you want to be careful, but those are little things that keep me alive in this industry. All right, so let's look at the 15-minute chart again. Let's see if there's one last summary here. So this is a good sign. Okay, it's trying to close green, as you can see here. So just pay attention. If we do end up getting 2 solid green bars above the support level, it might be a good consideration for entry. Again, RSI is a little high in my opinion, but the fact that we broke the recent all-time high and this is now a strong support level, we might see this bull run continue. If it does, I really hope that it works out. Just don't be afraid. If you take entry here, just say there's 2 solid green bars, you take entry, you get that confirmation, and the price goes south on you. As soon as it stays below this resistance line for, just say, 15 to 30 minutes, if it goes down to this range here, I would recommend selling your position and getting out. Try not to wait for it to recover, because it may not recover. Once we lose support, it becomes a strong resistance and we might see the price retrace even further. One last thing to also remember is to do not take a full position. So say, for example, you're trading with $1,000. Instead of taking that full 1,000, putting it in here and trying to ride it to the moon, right? Instead, try adding 20 to 30% at a time. See how that treats you. It works fantastically for me, because if I take a 20% entry and the price goes up, great, I'm still in the profit, I'm still in the green, right? However, if the price goes down and it drops below that resistance level, or that support level now becomes resistance, then I would essentially be out only 20%. But if I put in my full 100%, I would be at a much larger loss, right? So as you get confirmation, you add to your position. If you lose confirmation, you withdraw your position, take your loss, okay? But just don't go all in. That's the key here, because honestly, so many traders just jump in and try to jump out like they're the boss, right? It doesn't work out that way. You'll get lucky a few times and it'll screw you over super hard in the long run. Trust me, I know. I've lost plenty of gains in my day and I'm just tired of doing that. So hopefully you find this to be beneficial. Please let me know in the comments below. More to come. We'll keep a closer eye on EOS moving forward. Thank you to my community for reaching out and letting me know to cover this. And I'll be sure to keep a closer eye here moving forward. So we'll look forward to reconnecting again soon and getting a good review of this here. Check out my Patreon account if you haven't already, and of course, reach out through Telegram if you'd like to, kind of get involved in the community. We got a really awesome group of people there. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks again for your time. We'll see ya.